Hello and welcome to the Piano Man's Library. I've been reading a few books and I've been buying a few books. So I'll quickly go through some of the ones that I've been reading recently and finished, and then I will show you the few that we picked up along the way. So the first one that I have is My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. And this I read for the prompt, have someone recommend a book for you. And it was a cute little book, very unrealistic for the time period for which it took place in the 50s or 60s, maybe. And if it had been taken in place probably 100 years ago or a little bit more, it would have been more believable. But it was still cute and it met a prompt. The next book that I completed was Truman by David McCullough. Now, this particular edition we picked up out of the free bin at McKay's, but it was a good book to read. It's very large, and I think, even though I love big books, I really love big books, but this one was maybe just a little too big. It had so much information in here, partly because back in those days, the presidents were allowed to take all of their paperwork with them when they left the office. And so when his presidency was over, he took all of his file cabinets and boxes and boxes and boxes, and he raised the money. He started his own museum. And he had a lot of people that worked with him who were very good record keepers and diary keepers, and they donated all of their paperwork too. So Mr. McCullough had a lot of references, and he used them. And I did learn quite a bit um, from this book about U.S. history and world history. So that was good. Uh, we will probably pass this copy on because it is slightly mangled, and maybe at some point get a nicer edition to replace it. I'd also like to say in that book that I spent most of it thinking his wife was always leaving him. And because Mr. McCullough would say, and she had to leave. She left, she left, she left. And in his letters to her, he wrote, I wish you were here. Please come back. Begging her to come back, her to come back. And she may have and may not have. But the reason she left was because her mother was still back in their old home, and she was elderly and needed help. So it wasn't until near the end of the book that it actually said how close that they were. So that was kind of misrepresenting for a while, in my opinion. Anyway, the next book that I finished was How to Read and Write Like a Catholic. And while I've read books like How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler and Turn the Page, which is very similar, only a much easier read, Um, this is by Chris Brady. Um, this one goes more into content than the actual reading, and it was very good. He had recommended a lot of books to me, and I bought a few more. So that was good. But it was a really, really good read. And it probably will have me reading things that I might not in the past have chosen to read. So that is always cool. The next one that I finished was Anne of Avonlea. This is book 2 in the Anne of Green Gables series by Ellen Montgomery. I did not enjoy this quite as much as book number 1, the Anne of Green Gables book. It was, and I truly loved the TV adaptation with Megan Follows, I believe is the actress's name, who played Anne. And there was hardly anything in here in this book that was in the miniseries for some reason. So at least it may not be remembering it correctly because it has been a little while, but there's definitely things in the book that were not in the miniseries. And I think, yeah, I'll be checking out some of the others to see how they all compare and um, what I think of them. But not for a while, I think, because that's not my usual genre choice. The next book that I started and DNF'd, C.S. Lewis's Miracles. I got about halfway through this. I I always think that I love C.S. Lewis, but I forget that he's a professor and he overanalyzes everything. And even though I fully believed in miracles before I started reading this book, because of his way of analysis, he almost talked me out of it. So I'm like, I don't think I need this one in my life. So I might come back to it at some point, but we'll see. And then the next book that I finished was Jenny, The Life of Lady Randolph Churchill. Now, these are from her romantic years, 1854 to 1895. And this is book 1 of a 2-book biography by Ralph G. Martin. And if you don't know, this is Winston Churchill's mother. And so this edition, book 1, goes from when she's a child until her husband, Winston's father, uh, passes away. And she was a very interesting woman. And I gather she just gets more and more interesting as her life progressed. Uh, but it it was very, very interesting, and I quite enjoyed it very much. So I'll leave that. I'll probably talk a little bit more when I get to book 2, which I'm currently reading um, a little later on. So those are the books that I've completed. And then we picked up a few here and there. This one, the Piano Man picked up for me at McKay's. in the Heart of the Sea. And this is the tragedy of the whale ship Essex. And this is the boat for which um, Moby Dick was, the Moby Dick story was based on. So that will be good. And that is for my shipwreck prompt for on the 2025 bingo. And he found, and I believe this one was just in the free bin as well. We get lots of gems in that free bin. The Philadelphia Museum of Art. See that? But it has lots of their exhibits and stuff in there. Past exhibits, probably. I don't know how much would be there now. This edition was $19.95. So it's probably changed a bunch since then, but I still enjoy looking at those types of things. In the How to Read Like a Catholic book, one of the books that they talked about was The Index of Self-Destructive Acts, a novel by Christopher Beha, I believe. And this was on the National Book Award long list. And it sounded like an interesting book, so I wanted to grab that one. Then, let me see, this one we found at the Goodwill when we stopped in there. This is Frankenstein and Dracula in a nice edition. And it has some beautiful pictures in here. Let's find one here for you. Some are in color, and some are just sketches. Oh, there's another colored one. These are from the Dracula book. Okay, now I'm not seeing. Some sketches in here as well. Yeah, so we have other copies of Frankenstein, but we do not have any copies of Dracula. So we wanted to get that one. And we'll probably be picking that one up in the fall. Also, yeah, our family is going to be reading Frankenstein together. So we have a couple copies and we'll just pass them around. Both of those books are very short books, but if we wanted to, I could use the entire book for Big Book Summer. But since we already had those plans for Frankenstein, we won't be doing that. That is the books that I've been reading and a little haul. And let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are still reading Truman online, so didn't want to say too much there. But what do you think about that book? Do you think it's too big? Let me know if you've read any of these others. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.